Good Friday. I'm Dave Deken with a look at what's happening in Oklahoma agriculture and rural life in this episode of Red Dirt and Round Bales. You know, every once in a while you look at a map and something just doesn't look right. Well, Oklahoma has one of those things. Way out west, there's a long, skinny strip of land hanging off of the top of Texas, kind of tucked under Kansas and Colorado, reaching all the way to New Mexico. That's the Oklahoma Panhandle. Over the past couple months, I've been traveling across the great state of Oklahoma looking at the wheat crop and producing updates for the Oklahoma Wheat Commission. This past Tuesday and Wednesday, it was time to study the wheat of the Panhandle. Like I told the producers that I talked with, their wheat looks a lot like the wheat I saw downstate. I'll give more of an update about that next week. Now, I've spent my fair share of windshield time driving across Beaver, Texas, and Cimarron counties, shooting stories about some crops that are on both sides of the measuring stick, as well as telling stories of amazing Oklahomans across the Panhandle. And this time, I wanted to take one of our 11-year-old twin daughters. So, Molly and I set out on Tuesday morning, and as we crossed from Harper County into Beaver County, well, my Cliff Clavin tone kind of crept in. I explained how there were actually two towns separated by what's now US 412, and a tornado blew down the Nye sign, so now the world knows that dot on the map as Slapout, Oklahoma. Then we had to stop and take a selfie, as one does whenever they are driving through Slapout. We stopped near Balco for the field tour and got plenty of video of wheat. We drove out to what was going to be Lake Optima, and I showed her the dam, and we kind of imagined how much water it could have actually held back. Now, if you haven't been out there in a while, you need to do it sooner than later. Maintenance has all but ended, and eventually the grass will cover the semi-paved roads that are there now. We stayed in Guymon and made our way across Texas County and parts of Cimarron County, getting video of wheat. Then we got some souvenirs in Hooker, Oklahoma, and videoed more wheat. We were both pretty tired before we made our way back downstate, but I had the opportunity to see that spark in my daughter's eye that every dad lives for. It wasn't like going to Disney World. It wasn't like Christmas morning. But for her, she got to see the hometown of the main character from one of her favorite book series. Driving into Forgan, Oklahoma, kind of as you make that bend, if you look on the right side of the road, there's a sign that says, Home of Hank the Cowdog. Her tired and road-weary eyes lit up. We stopped at the dark granite monument in the center of town and got her picture. Now, her sister and I will make a trip soon because they're only kids once. I love the Oklahoma Panhandle, and our 11-year-old daughter does too. And if you've ever driven through it, you know it really doesn't feel like any other part of Oklahoma. The sky feels bigger, the wind has more room to run, towns sit further apart, grain elevators kind of raise up like landmarks. And the land itself seems to tell you pretty quickly that it does not hand out easy livings. But that's exactly what makes the Panhandle such a fascinating piece of Oklahoma history. Because for a long time, it really wasn't Oklahoma at all. It wasn't Texas, it wasn't Kansas, it really wasn't part of any organized territory. It was just there. So folks called it no man's land. Now the reason for that goes way back, to old boundary lines, politics, and the slavery debate before the Civil War. Texas once claimed a whole lot more land than what it has today. When Texas gave up some of those claims in the Compromise of 1850, and Kansas drew its southern line where it did, this little narrow strip of land got left behind. The Oklahoma Historical Society says that it was about 34.5 miles wide and roughly 167 miles long. A long, skinny piece of prairie that nobody was officially governing. For about 40 years, from 1850 to 1890, this land was not attached to a state or a territorial government. There were people there were cattle there were trails, ranches, stores, newspapers, schools, churches, saloons, and families trying to make a life. But there wasn't much law, and there sure weren't many legal land titles either. Before all of that, of course, this was Plains country. Indigenous people had been in and around that region for thousands of years. The Kiowa, Comanche, Cheyenne, Plains Apache, and others knew that land long before settlers started to draw the lines across it. Explorers may have crossed through. Traders came later. The Cimarron cutoff of the Santa Fe Trail moved through that region. Then came the cattlemen, and when the buffalo herds were gone and native people were forced onto reservations, the open range filled up with cattle. The Panhandle became the kind of a place where a man might build a ranch near water, run cattle across miles of grass, and hope nobody else showed up with a bigger herd or a better gun. Because remember, there wasn't much government out there, and where there isn't much government, folks will eventually try to make some of their own. In the 1880s, settlers in no man's land actually tried to organize their own territory. They called it Cimarron Territory. They wanted a way to register land claims, settle disputes, bring in homesteaders, get some order, and maybe even become a state someday. But the U.S. Congress never really bought into it, so the people kept living in this strange in-between place. Not quite legal, not quite lawless, not quite forgotten, but pretty darn close. And that kind of place attracts all kinds. There were ranchers and farmers, sure, but there were also gamblers, drifters, outlaws, dreamers, and town builders. One of the wild little places was once called Beer City. But like a lot of those rough and ready settlements, it didn't last. When law finally came to the Panhandle, places like Beer City kind of faded away. That's part of the Panhandle story too. Some towns made it, some didn't. Oklahoma has had thousands of ghost towns over the years, and the Panhandle, it's had its share of names that used to mean something to somebody. Maybe a store, a post office, a schoolhouse, a few families, maybe a railroad hope that never quite came true. Then one day, the wind kept blowing, and that town is gone. Now in the 1890s, things finally changed. Congress attached no man's land to Oklahoma Territory, and when Oklahoma became a state in 1907, the Panhandle became 3 counties: Cimarron, Texas, and Beaver. Now those names still carry a whole lot of weight. Cimarron County is the furthest west. It touches more states than most people realize, like Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, and the rest of Oklahoma. Texas County has Guymon, the big hub of the Panhandle, and Beaver County has that old cowtown history running right through it. Today, the Panhandle only has a handful of incorporated towns, but don't let that fool you. A lot of Oklahoma's agricultural strength sits in those 3 counties. Because the Panhandle economy has always come down to just a few things: grass, grain, cattle, water, weather, and grit. Cattle came early, then farmers arrived and started to break the sod. Wheat became king. Grain sorghum became important too. Later came natural gas, feedlots, pork production, and large-scale agriculture. Texas County in particular became one of Oklahoma's major agricultural counties. Wheat, cattle, hogs, grain. That county carried a serious load for the state. But every blessing out there seems to come with a test, and the biggest test was the Dust Bowl. When we talk about the Dust Bowl, we sometimes think about it like it was just a bad drought. It was much more than that. It was the sky turning black in the middle of the day. It was dirt coming through the walls. It was the crops failing, cattle suffering, children getting sick, farms being lost, and families loading up what they could carry and heading somewhere else. The Panhandle was right in the heart of it, especially Cimarron County. And what makes this story so powerful is not just the suffering. It's that people stayed. Not everybody, of course. Many had to leave. You really can't romanticize hunger or foreclosure or a field that won't grow. But some stayed. They learned. They changed how they worked the land. They adapted to dryland farming. They leaned on neighbors. They rebuilt herds, replanted wheat, raised kids, kept schools open, kept churches going, and kept towns alive in a place that had already been written off more than once. That's the thing about the Oklahoma Panhandle. From the beginning, somebody was always underestimating it. Mapmakers treated it like leftover land. Politicians ignored it. Weather punished it. Markets rose and fell. Towns disappeared. Dust buried fences and dreams alike. And still, people made a life there. That's why the Panhandle is more than just an odd shape of land on a map. It's one of the clearest examples of Oklahoma resilience. The people out there, well, they know distance. They know drought. They know wind. They know that a good year can feed you and a bad year can humble you. But they also know how to endure. And maybe that's why the Panhandle feels different. It was no man's land once. A place without a government, a place without easy answers, a place that didn't quite belong anywhere. But the people who stayed made it belong. They gave it county seats, and wheat fields, and stockyards, and school colors, and Friday night lights. They gave it stories. They gave it cemeteries. They gave it roots. And after all those years of being called no man's land, the Oklahoma Panhandle became something much stronger. It became home. It also became a place for a dad to show his daughter how you never really know what you'll see on life's highway. Who knows? You just might see where one of your favorite book series was written. To learn more about the Oklahoma Panhandle, visit reddirtandroundbales.com. I'm Dave Deken. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk with you next week as we take another look at rural life and agriculture in Oklahoma on Red Dirt and Round Bales.